Hello, Patriots. Glad to be back. It feels good to be back. Let's get these lights brightened up just a little bit. We are here. We have a great show today. We're going to talk about RFK Jr. and the chaos that he is causing in the CDC. It is great chaos. It is good chaos. There's nothing wrong with the chaos that is occurring there. However, it is something that we absolutely voted for 100%. We 100% voted for all of the fallout that is happening at the CDC. So that is going to be the topic that is going to cover the entire show tonight. There is so much news on it, and we're going to go over all of that. We'll be right back in 1 minute.
Hey, Ryan. Hi, this is Sarah Palin.
Ryan, Donald Trump Jr.
Harsh to win, see you. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to check out a fellow Marines podcast.
My name is Ted Nugent, and I got a call from my buddy Ryan F. Samuels, and he wants me to tell you that he's a working hard, playing all-American son of a who is celebrating God, family, country.
Welcome to the Ryan Samuels Show, one of the top political podcasts in the United States, where we have a healthy distrust for government and mainstream media. The Ryan Samuels Show is a raw, unfiltered look at American politics. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Here is your host, Ryan Samuels.
So after the COVID-19, but I guess, could you still call it a pandemic? Was it actually a pandemic? I mean, that's a great question. I don't know if I would classify it as a pandemic. That's just me. However, that's not really important at the moment. What's important at the moment is the way that our government handled it was absolute chaos. And the American people are completely fed up and pissed off, as they should be. This is one of the things that Donald Trump got elected for. Joe Biden and forced vaccinations. That was the caveat to get me into this business. That was the day I went out and bought my first podcast microphone. It was a completely terrible sound and video quality, nothing like it is today. And I had 0 viewers. Now I have millions of viewers and, hundreds of thousands of downloads every month. Thank you guys. But before we get any further, make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you like this content so far and you're not following this channel or subscribe to this channel, subscribe. Click it, follow it. Let's see. There's going to be plenty more content. I am live Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. every night. Okay? So the CDC had this major walkout. Okay? After an employee at the CDC was fired, the head of the CDC was fired. Now you had employees walk out in solidarity. It's not solidarity. Okay, yeah, did they walk out? Yeah, sure, because they knew they were getting fired next. She was just the first one to go. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. She's the first one to go. So this is, okay, I can't say his name, Dr. Dimitri Daskalakakis. Anyway, here's an interview of him on ABC, who's all butthurt over the changes that RFK Jr. is making to particularly the vaccine policy. Now, if there's anything that COVID taught us, it is that the United States federal government is just completely incompetent, particularly when it comes to vaccines. The vaccine was a disaster. And here's the thing. Democrats forced you to have it. It really wasn't tested. It really wasn't. They said it was safe and effective, and now that's questioned. Okay, I'm not saying it's not safe. That's a personal conversation you need to have with your doctor. But the CDC itself is now questioning the results of the COVID-19 vaccine. But this is what brought out all of the distrust in government, and now nobody trusted CDC. People don't believe we went on the moon now after what they heard from the CDC. But here's this doctor on ABC talking about his resignation. Let's listen.
I mean, from my vantage point as a doctor who's taken the Hippocratic Oath, I only see harm coming. I may be wrong, but based on what I'm seeing, based on what I've heard with the new members of the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, or ACIP.
So what he's talking about is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He fired all of the vaccine advisory board. They're all gone. They're all terminated, scratch, get the hell out of here. And the reason he did that is because the people who were advising the CDC whether or not they should be approving a vaccination or not had stake in the vaccine companies, or were employed by the vaccine companies, or were financially supported by the vaccine companies. These people were compromised. So the people who are approving the vaccines are working for the people who are selling the vaccines, and they're supposed to be the people who are making sure it's safe and effective. This concerns him.
They're really moving in an ideologic direction where they want to see the undoing of vaccination. They do want to see the undoing of mRNA vaccination. They have a very specific target on COVID, but I do fear that they have other things that they are going to be working on. Hepatitis B vaccine is on the agenda for the meeting in September. I predict that what they're going to do is try to change the birth dose of hepatitis B vaccine so that kids don't get it when they're born. So if you have a mother who is well connected to care, you know her hepatitis B status, that may not matter very much. But if you have a mother who's not gone to prenatal care, who comes in to deliver, we have one bite at that apple so that child gets that important hepatitis B vaccine. I mean, from my...
So the hepatitis V vaccine is mandated for every kid. Every child, when they're born. And there's no logical explanation for it. Just every kid, when they come out of their parents' womb, they have to have the hepatitis B vaccine, which makes absolutely no sense. Unless, you know, your mom or dad had hepatitis. I mean, that would be a reason for it. It doesn't make any sense, but so what our CDC has become, which is the Center for Disease Control, it has become a compromised wing of the federal government that has been infiltrated by people who work for the pharmaceutical companies or who are allies of the pharmaceutical companies. Perhaps saying work for is too strong. They're allies, or they're sympathetic to the pharmaceutical companies. And they have taken over basically the pharmaceutical companies and these massive billion, sometimes trillion-dollar organizations have taken over the CDC, which is a regulatory agency who's supposed to stop the pharmaceutical companies from hurting people, but they're not doing that anymore. And that's one of the reasons that Donald Trump was elected. That's one of the reasons to have Robert F. Kennedy in there, because he's an expert on what is going on there and knows exactly what needs to be fixed. Here is a young lady. This is from Dr. Etiquette on, let me bring it over so we can read it together. It's from Dr. Etiquette on Twitter. Do you remember when the FDA asked a judge to allow Pfizer to hide their date on the vaccine, JF, for 75 years? Data, sorry, not date. Was the FDA protecting you or Pfizer? Please watch the short clip and tell me what the FDA, CDC... Okay, we're going to watch the clip. But we're going to hang on for a second. So what Dr. Etiquette is talking about is they are talking about the notion that when this vaccine came out, before they gave it to people, two things happened. Number one, the first thing that happened is they were released of all liability. Anything that would happen to human beings as a result of their vaccine, not anymore. Not the vaccine companies. They got 100% pure and total unadulterated immunity, even if every single person that got the vaccine dropped dead. They got complete immunity. That's one. Two, all of the data, all of the results, all of the testing is to be hidden and not released for 75 years. Why? What do you have to hide? Right? So you give all these vaccines, people give their feedbacks to their doctors. I'm feeling this way, X way, that way, blah, 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 blah. I get hot flashes, or I got a rash on my neck, and then they take, millions and millions and millions of these feedback and they bump it into categories. Okay, well, we saw 70 people got a rash on their neck, or 20% of people did this, or we saw people had chest pains, but then that went away. All hidden. All hidden. Where you're never allowed to see it. You're never allowed to talk about it. You're never allowed to have access to it. So let's listen to this video.
No wonder that the FDA asked a judge to block the release of Pfizer's documents for 75 years. Pfizer didn't ask that, the FDA did. Why? Because they're literally a completely captured agency. They're not serving us, they're serving the pharmaceutical industry that they're supposed to be regulating.
Yes, yes. And I forgot to announce, we're live on Wimpkin for the first time, and we got a bunch of people on there. I got Colin commenting, Jerry Kruger. Can you hear me better, Jerry? We got a bunch of people commenting, man. Thanks for tuning in. If you're into free speech, make sure you go onto Wimpkin and you log in and sign up. It's kind of like a Facebook or a Twitter. It's a social media platform. It's freaking great. So, all right, let's listen to what else she has to say.
It's not just FDA, though. NIH has a partnership with Bill Gates. You can read the documents. CDC is a public-private partnership that's taken, in the last year, I think, about $300 million from the pharmaceutical industry and other vested interests. NIH has earned $2 billion in the last 30 years on the drugs and vaccines that they have developed and licensed. Literally $2 billion in royalties. CDC has made, CDC owns, I forget, it's like 65 or 70 patents on vaccines. It's a huge amount.
Who are they benefiting? Does the agency, here's a question for everybody in the audience. Does the agency still have the integrity to do what is best for the American people? That's a question for all of you. Hey, Michelle, JD, welcome on. Great to see all of you back tonight. So, is the agency compromised? The answer is yes. I mean, the answer is 100% yes, and the entire system is being torn down, and they cannot handle it. They're losing their minds. Here is this doctor again that resigned after the firing of, we're going to go over the firing of Susan, but here's the doctor, okay? That worked for the CDC, that we just saw in a suit, nice looking gentleman. Here he is. Does this look like a sane person to you that you want making decisions based on your children's vaccine schedules? Or clearing who's and what's in your vaccines? Let's listen to this.
CDC, we're really excited. If you go to one of our handles, our social media handles, at Stop HIV Together, you can order a free take-home HIV test. It gets delivered to your house. So it's self-testing. So there's so many ways to do it.
That's amazing, because your privacy and everything is right there.
Yeah, everyone should be tested for HIV. And I think that especially in the...
I don't need to be tested for HIV. That's just me.
LGBTQAI community, it's really important to remember that you should get tested again, and you should get tested frequently. And really, the message really is that there's nothing scary about it. Negative or positive, it doesn't matter.
It starts with the test.
It's the key that unlocks the door. Yeah. And so once you get that key in and you figure out your status, you can figure out what the right thing is to do for you. And that's like what our job is at CDC and in healthcare, is to make sure that we have lots of options for people, both for how they get tested and also how they engage in care and services. So, testing is the key. It's the gateway.
This is just a virus. It doesn't have that stigma that it did earlier.
Focusing on racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and that's a pride message, is so critical in actually ending the HIV epidemic and, frankly, all epidemics of infectious diseases. CDC.
Because racism, that's what racism is the infectious disease. Diseases are racist now. This is a person who had a tremendous amount of power in the federal government. Here he is on MSNBC.
I work in HIV normally, and I'll tell you that,
Why? Why do you work in HIV? Why is that why are you so obsessed with HIV, dude?
I always say that I've never made an HIV diagnosis in someone that hasn't somehow related to stigma. I think Mpox is the same. So really, stigma tends to be a barrier to testing, a barrier to vaccination. And so, really addressing stigma intentionally and making sure that we get the word out in a way that supports people's joy as opposed to, calling them risky. So I think, one of the things to think about is that, one person's idea of risk is another person's idea of a great festival or Friday night, for that matter. So we have to sort of embrace that with joy and make sure that folks.
So call it joy. Call having HIV joy and not risky. It doesn't make any sense. But these are the people that were working for the CDC in the Biden administration. So he's one of the ones that quit after Susan Menarez was fired. She was asked to resign. This is her right here. Let me pull her up. Susan Menarez was asked to resign. Originally, she had said yes, and then she said no. This is her testifying about mRNA, which is the COVID-19, what they call a vaccine, but I guess technically, according to some doctors, is not a vaccine.
In the production of the COVID-19 vaccine, had approved the mRNA vaccines as safe and had demonstrated efficacy associated with them.
So you would not be prejudiced from the get-go against such a platform, such a vaccine built upon a platform, whether it's for COVID, flu, for Lyme disease, or anything else?
That is why I have no a priori prejudice against the mRNA platform or any other approach that is being taken to develop vaccines. And that is why we have safety and efficacy standards that the FDA puts in place for any of these medical product trials.
Ran by the people who are 100% compromised by the pharmaceutical companies. That's why these safeties are in effect. But the pharmaceutical company's basically on the board of directors. And they're pushing it through, getting it approved.
To ensure that anything that is being developed, we can have the confidence that we can put it in ourselves and our children, our family members.
So then you, as the CDC director, responsible for setting the ACIP agenda, would not shrink from the recommendation of such a vaccine. Would you also recommend that the 17 members be constituted with those who actually have experience with mRNA research and could know both sides of the safety discussion?
Yeah, we absolutely need highly trained scientists and medical professionals to be able to participate in the ACIP meeting.
You don't have those already at the Center for Disease Control?
Don't have deep technical knowledge in mRNA. They have to be able to understand complicated scientific information, and they have to have the temerity to ask questions to make sure that they have clarity of understanding of information that is being presented to them.
That's the head, a doctor, saying that it is safe and that it is effective, okay? Here's Stephen Miller on C-SPAN. And they're trying to, ambush him about Susan, right? And let's listen to what he has to say.
Okay, so how confident is the White House that you can permanently nominate a CDC director that sort of balances the vaccine stance of Kennedy with someone that could pass the Senate?
Well, as we know, so we'll find an incredible nominee. I'm not worried about that at all. But it's a good opportunity to talk about the CDC issue more broadly. As we know, the CDC's credibility was shattered during the COVID era. This is now widely understood and widely acknowledged. And CDC used to be, of course, seen widely around the world as a premier health agency. And much of the world discovered in the last few years that CDC was actually staffed by a lot of very partisan, very political bureaucrats who weren't at all concerned about public health and weren't actually very knowledgeable about public health. And we are working hard. And more importantly, Secretary Kennedy, one of the world's foremost voices, advocates, and experts on public health, is working hard to restore the credibility and the integrity of CDC as a scientific organization committed to the scientific method and getting to the root causes of the public health epidemic in this country. there's one chronic illness after another where we have seen incidences and rates in the Western world in general, in America in particular, skyrocket over recent decades and years, both childhood illnesses and adult illnesses. And we know that the drivers of these chronic illnesses are things that can be explained both through environmental factors, both through pharmacological factors, as well as other things that impact public health and well-being. But there has been no serious effort until Secretary Kennedy came along to deal with these systemic root drivers of chronic health. And it's an honor to be able to work with Secretary Kennedy as he tackles these issues on behalf of President Trump.
Does the president have any hesitance?
I mean, he's just being honest. They destroyed their own credibility during COVID. That's what they did. They destroyed their own credibility during COVID. Here, let's just have a quick flashback to COVID. I know nobody wants to go back there, but let's just watch Stephen Colbert doing the vaccine. Look at him. I gotta mute that. Look at them all dancing. Dressed as needles. This was frickin' madness. And then we found out that, in fact, it was not safe. And it was not effective. But everybody was telling us that it is. Here's Barack Obama doing his guest appearance with Dr. Fauci, trying to get everybody to do this vaccine.
Thanks to the work of the Biden administration, Dr. Fauci, we already have millions of kids around the country who have gotten vaccinated, which means that if you're still thinking about it, get informed, talk to somebody you trust, your family doctor, your pediatrician, a school nurse, get more information about it. They'll tell you it's safe, it's effective. This vaccine is tailored for kids.
It's tailored for kids.
And then come on down and find a spot to get vaccinated. You can get it for free just by going to vaccine.gov. It'll tell you exactly where you can go to get vaccinated. And, make sure to do it, as you said, for your kids, your entire family, as well as for the community at large.
It was forced down everybody's throat. And they're coming out now and they're saying it's dangerous. We're going to watch that. But during this time, there were podcasters like me. I was very new and I had no followers at the time. But trying to tell people like, hey, we are getting information that perhaps this vaccine is not safe. Perhaps. Okay? That perhaps this vaccine is not safe, that perhaps there are certain doctors that disagree with it, and Twitter was taking everything down. Twitter was taking down all of the conversations, all of the communications, anybody who opposed it, and they were just pumping you full of positive messages. That went on forever until they couldn't get 100% of the population vaccinated, so Joe Biden came out and did this.
Highly contagious Delta variant that I began to warn America about back in July spread late summer like it did in other countries before us. While the vaccines provide strong protection for the vaccinated, we read about and hear about and we see the stories of hospitalized people on their deathbeds among the unvaccinated over the past few weeks. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And it's caused by the fact that despite America having unprecedented and successful vaccination program, despite the fact that for almost 5 months, free vaccines have been available in 80,000 different locations, we still have nearly 80 million Americans who have failed to get the shot. And to make matters worse, there are elected officials actively working to undermine the fight against COVID-19. Instead of encouraging people to get vaccinated and mask up, they're ordering mobile morgues for the unvaccinated dying from COVID in their communities.
We found out that was not from COVID. Not all of them, anyway. He's so much more well-spoken in the beginning of his presidency, isn't he?
This is totally unacceptable. The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospitals.
It was like they were discriminating against unvaccinated people. It was like being black during Jim Crow. You can't sit here. Where's your vaccine passport? This is a vaccinated-only restaurant.
Overrunning emergency rooms and intensive care units, leaving no room for someone with a heart attack or pancreatitis or cancer. And a distinct minority of Americans, supported by a distinct minority of elected officials, are keeping us from turning the corner. These pandemic politics, as I refer to, are making people sick, causing unvaccinated people to die. We cannot allow these actions to stand in the way of protecting the large majority of Americans who have done their part. I want to get back to life as normal. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
Not about freedom or personal choice. We don't care about that. We're Democrats. We own you. You are property of the Communist Democratic Socialist Party in the United States of America. They don't believe in freedom. They never have. It's a very telling speech. It's not about freedom or personal choice.
It's about protecting yourself and those around you, the people you work with.
But if all the people I work with are vaccinated and I'm not, they're protected, are they not? Or do vaccines not work that way? Right? Like, if everybody around me is protected, if everybody around me has a bulletproof vest on and I don't, and then they all shoot each other and then shoot me, I'm really the only one that's going to die. I don't know. I never understood that. That was the question I used to ask that all the time to liberals, and they lose their mind. I'd be like, well, if you're vaccinated and I'm not, how are you at risk? You're vaccinated. Oh, well, they're different variants. Shut up. It doesn't make any sense.
The people you care about, the people you love.
I can't watch it anymore. But that's the video that I watched live, and I said, I'm tired of it. I need to speak. And then I was immediately banned with my first video. Was about that speech. I don't even know if you can find it anymore. But it turns out that there were major problems with this vaccine. Major problems with this vaccine. This vaccine is not a normal vaccine. It's an mRNA vaccine. It's a little bit different than your flu vaccine, right? They call it a vaccine, but apparently, according to some doctors, you couldn't. You couldn't call it a vaccine. And then a certain word started trending. Well, everybody was forced to get these vaccines. A certain word was trending. It was trending on Twitter. It was trending on Facebook. It was trending so bad and so much that the social media companies tried to take it down, and they almost couldn't because everybody was talking about it. It was died suddenly. Like all of a sudden, all these young men, all these young girls, athletes, just dropping dead. Kids playing lacrosse, dropping dead. And then everybody wanted to talk about, is it the jab? Just a question. And you were immediately shut down. If you said anything bad about the jab, you're done, you're suspended. Here's a clip from Joe Rogan talking about the vaccine.
One of the things that I'm sad about, but is also kind of hilarious, is how many people were promoters of the vaccine and then died suddenly. It's crazy how many young people just died in their sleep after they took it. And everybody's like, nothing to see here.
Sudden adult death syndrome.
Yeah. Just died suddenly. You ever go to the died suddenly Instagram page? Like, holy
God.
There's so many. And so many people like talking about people who are, anti-Darwin, anti-vaxxers, and then you're dead. Sorry. You bought into the wrong bullshit. But that's, if you really want to get cruel, that's Darwinism. Do you not know they lie by now? Are you not aware of the opioid crisis? You're not aware of Vioxx? You're not aware of the various, like to 25% of all FDA-approved drugs that get pulled? It's 1 out of 4. And you're like, really, you're an anti-vaxxer? What are you, a conspiracy theorist? You fool. Darwin's going to do its work with you. You're modifying your genes, you idiot. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You just going to trust Pfizer? Well, they do support Anderson Cooper, brought to you by Pfizer. And you're like, oh, this must be legit.
It's I mean, he's right. 1 in 4 of all drugs approved by the CDC is recalled. Now, a lot of people, they blame Biden for the vaccine. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of it was Trump, and nobody ever talks about it. All right. And, that's what we do on this show. Like, I like Trump. I do, but I'm going to hold the guy accountable. It was Operation Warp Speed that kind of jacked this whole thing into effect. Now, you got to remember, too, that the president only gets information from the people you're supposed to trust. But when the Center for Disease Control is telling you X, Y, and Z, and the entire country is about to die if everybody doesn't get this vaccine, as the president, you're going to listen. Right? It doesn't matter who the president is. So here's a clip of Operation Warp Speed from MSNBC.
For a self-described wartime president, victory over COVID-19 equals a vaccine.
I hope we're going to have a vaccine, and we're going to fast track it like you've never seen before.
Adding Trump-style branding, the administration launched Operation Warp Speed, a multi-billion-dollar research and manufacturing effort to shorten the typical year-plus vaccine development timeline. The goal is ambitious, producing patient-ready vaccines as early as January, though officials stressed there is no guarantee.
We want to go quickly, but we want to make sure it's safe and it's effective. I think that is doable.
Officials tell NBC News the project whittled down 93 potential vaccines from more than 80 pharmaceutical companies. Next, 14 drugs considered most promising will undergo more testing. Narrowed again for...
So it was Trump that put the pressure to get it out quickly. And that's because the narrative was millions of people are dying. It was like nobody had the flu anymore. And everybody was dying from COVID. If you had a heart attack, you died from COVID. Okay? It was everything. All death was suddenly due to COVID-19. And RFK is the guy to handle this, and this is what he's doing. We need to be looking at this from a scenario of what's best for the American people. Okay? That's what these regulatory governments agencies are supposed to be for. They're supposed to stop the predatory practices of some of these, multi-billion-dollar companies, these international companies that basically have unlimited resources and power. They're supposed to be there to check and balance to make sure that they're not killing all of us. But now we're in a situation where, our food is completely out of control. Here's RFK talking about the food. I started looking into this myself, and now I'm afraid to eat anything. When you look at the numbers about kids with red dye 40 and all this crap they're putting in the food, they're hurting you. Then you're pumping your full of your meds to heal you. And then the meds are hurting you too, so they give you extra meds to keep the other meds working to treat what's in the food. It's like this system of just like, they're killing you. Here's RFK talking about it.
This is what most Americans innocently put into their bodies these days, and most alarmingly, into the bodies of their children. And it's no coincidence that Americans die earlier than Canadians or Germans or Italians or Japanese or Koreans or Australians or most any other comparable country. And it wasn't always that way until the early 1990s. Our life expectancy was the same or better than other developed countries.
Right. That's a true statement. So our life expectancy dropped in the 1990s to under the rest of the world, right? When I was young, they told me, oh, your generation, you're going to live to be 120, which is what we should be living to. Like everybody, it's 2025, man. Like people who get HIV nowadays or AIDS, it's not even a death sentence anymore. They push it so far down that you don't even feel the symptoms anymore. They keep you symptomless and unable to transmit it too. Like that's how powerful the meds are, and they treat it for life. And you can't infect anybody, and it won't affect you. Apparently, you still have HIV though. So, like our technology has come so far. Even cancer, back in the 90s, if you got cancer, you were basically dead. It was a miracle if you survived. Nowadays, you can have it for 20, 30 years. You'll be sick, and it's horrible, and it's a terrible disease. But a lot of times, it's not an immediate death sentence the way it used to be. But everybody else in the world, their life expectancy increased and ours went down or stayed the same.
Then suddenly, more and more Americans began suffering from chronic diseases, from obesity, cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and all kinds of autoimmune diseases. Our maternal mortality rate soared to the highest of any developed country on earth. Same with infant mortality. Like the frog in the slowly boiling water, we didn't really notice as we got sicker and sicker. We've grown now to accept chronic disease.
When RFK Jr. was a darling of the left, right? That went away once he started supporting Trump. But, this should not be a surprise to anybody. Now, what they have done at the CDC is they have pulled the COVID vaccinations from the immunization schedule of healthy kids and pregnant women. Listen, COVID-19, according to a lot of the experts, say that it's only really dangerous to people that already have autoimmune diseases and the elderly. It's almost an overwhelming support by experts, real experts, that children don't need it. If a kid gets COVID, he's fine. My son had COVID when he was 6 months old. Oh my God, he's fine. He's running around the house. He's perfectly fine. And he didn't need a vaccine. He was inconvenienced. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm here today with NIH Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Produced by the U.S.
That's great news. They're not injecting our children with body altering substances that alter your genes. It's friggin' insane. It's friggin' insane. And doctors are being paid to do this stuff. Doctors are being paid for this, and they don't even doctors don't even realize what's going on. Here's RFK again.
Doctors are being paid to vaccinate, not to evaluate. They're pressured to follow the money, not the science. We've recently uncovered that more than 36,000 doctors had their Medicare reimbursements altered based upon childhood vaccination rates.
What?
That's not medicine. That's coercion. It's immoral. It has no place in a constitutional democracy or in a system.
They're giving more money to doctors who vaccinate more. The more kids you vaccinate, the more bonuses you're going to get. Every newborn gets a hepatitis B vaccine. We don't care. We don't care what the risks are. We don't care that there's mercury in them. We don't care what's in them.
That claims to protect children. Medical decisions should be made based upon one thing and one thing only: the well-being of the patient, never on a financial bonus or a government mandate. Patients deserve honest, uncorrupted advice from their doctors. Doctors deserve the freedom to use their training and to follow the science and speak the truth without fear of punishment. Doctors should be guided by...
It's become all about the money and no longer the patient. And you have license boards that'll pull doctors' licenses away if they don't jump on board. These are all good things. These are great things. This is exactly what I want to see. I actually want to see more. I am perfectly okay with the entire CDC to just be gone and not exist anymore. Like, I'm perfectly okay with that. They're incompetent. They apparently just injected millions and millions of people with a vaccine that was dangerous for them. And apparently some people suffered from it, but you can't get retribution because they have immunity. How is there immunity for a product? That doesn't even make any sense. Name one product on this planet that you're not immune, that is immune from prosecution. Name one company other than this vaccine that is immune from prosecution. If this microphone electrocutes me, I can sue the microphone company. This hat, I can sue them. If the thing breaks and I slip. I mean, there's a lady that sued McDonald's because her coffee was too hot. But now, because of the internal infiltration by our drug companies into the regulatory agency, you can't. So what about all these people that have vaccine injuries? They just can't get retribution?
The woke world has exploded. I mean, this is like a neutron bomb going off with the firing of the former CDC director, Susan Manaras. Why was she fired?
Well, look, David, I don't know, but the CDC needs an extremely strong leader. It's a broken agency. This is an agency that with 20,000 employees could not generate a website to track the COVID virus. It was eventually created by one Johns Hopkins grad student. He created a COVID website that the world used. And it's not just one or two mishaps at the CDC. Culturally, operationally, scientifically, they've lost their mission. They propagate dogma. They pushed cloth masks on toddlers for 3 years. They insisted schools shut out children for nearly 2 years using a phony pseudoscience document that the teachers union edited, and those edits appeared in the final document. They made up 6 feet. They pushed vaccine boosters in young, healthy people. So the CDC needs a realignment, and it needs an extremely strong leader.
Well, the other thing they did, and you and I were talking about it at the time during the height of the pandemic, they seemed to be cooking the statistics. I mean, making it appear as though there were no ill effects of the vaccine, that it was a 100% successful vaccine, 100% effective. And of course, you mentioned the children. I mean, the fact that the adverse consequences of children taking the vaccine were higher than the possibility of serious illness among those same children.
Yeah, David, it became extremely partisan in the last administration. In the Biden administration, the ACIP committee and the CDC fired Martin Kulldorff, who was a leading Harvard epidemiologist and vaccine expert. And that was the sort of scientific intolerance that has marked the culture of the CDC in the last 4 years. And that's why public trust is low. They ignored natural immunity. They came up with their own sham studies and published it in their own medical journal that had no peer review. So it's time to rebuild public trust. And the way we do that as healthcare leaders is to show some humility and to invite a civil discourse. And that's what we're seeing right now as part of the new leadership strategy in this administration.
I don't think they could do it any better. I don't think that they could do it any better. Tom said, I want to see the CDC investigate statins and their effect. Low cholesterol has bad things too. Yeah, a lot of it does, man. Just about everything will kill you. It's freaking wild. But this should not be a surprise. What he's doing, you know, the left is acting completely surprised. Oh my God, look at what he's doing. He's ruining everything. He literally said he was going to.
During the Biden administration, the FDA slow-walked the approvals for U.S. vaping companies. And the U.S. vaping companies, in my view, were acting very responsibly. They were putting chips in their vapes that would make sure that young people could not use them. They were giving good information about addiction. And they had very extensive labels. They really went out of their way not to make it attractive to children. They were slow walk, so they're off the market.
Now listen, before you sit here and say, oh, he supports vapes, he doesn't. He's saying that the American vaping companies, which is the ones who should be taking precedent to sell in the United States, not China, the rest of the world should wait for our companies to sell anything before we allow a Chinese vape in here or anything. I don't care if it's from Switzerland. United States businesses come first, America first. Everybody else is secondary. But he's saying, listen, they were being responsible, but they allowed China to do it. The question is why?
And in order to fill the vacuum, hundreds of Chinese companies came in with these colored, beautifully, attractively
sour grape,
comic books, watermelons, all these flavors that are targeted to kids. They had video games on the vapes that lure kids into addiction.
So you're in
and
tune
we
with
are
that.
we are gonna wipe them out.
Thank you.
We're gonna get rid of all of them.
Thank you for that commitment. As a mother of a teenager, and on behalf of all moms of teenagers, I know that vaping was going on in some of even our elementary and middle schools. We thank you.
Why on God's earth would they allow Chinese vapes into the country before American vapes, especially when the American companies are being more responsible? So we all remember Vivek Ramaswamy from the election, the 2024 election. You may not know, and I'm sure a lot of you do, is that he made his wealth doing pharmaceuticals. So he's the perfect guy to talk to.
Let's talk about Big Pharma.
Yeah.
I've heard that Big Pharma is the world's biggest lobbying organization.
I think that's accurate.
How much of the government do they control?
They only control the portion of the government they need to control, which is the FDA, which is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, and they're pretty effective at controlling it, actually. So a lot of the regulatory hurdle for developing a new medicine, that actually helps Big Pharma because it makes it harder for a competitor to scale that same cost of capital. Simple story. So just think about the hypocrisy underlying this. You see what happened with the COVID vaccines, right? The same FDA that says you have to take 10 years to develop a new medicine or a vaccine and spend billions of dollars. So much so that not only are we gonna not say it's safe, we won't even give an individual the opportunity to, in their own free spirit, with full information, try it. You don't even have the right to try it if it hasn't been through 10 years of testing. We, the government, will not give you that choice. Is the same government that then says, oh, but here's a vaccine that makes it through in less than 1 year, and you don't have the choice not to take it, your only choice is to take it. You can't believe those things at the same time. That here's a medicine that's been through 5 years of testing, and you don't have the choice to take it even if you want to, is the same government that says that here's something that sailed through in less than 1 year, and you have no choice but not to take it. You can't believe those two things at the same time. That's the product of hypocritical lobbying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer. There you have it right there. Is Big Pharma wins on both sides of that trade. On one hand, they win from it having to take that much longer, because at least keeps the competition out for the normal process. but under circumstances where they're going to stand to benefit from it, we'll get a fast track process to say not only do you get to develop it at the public taxpayer's expense, by the way, funding the entire process, but mandates to have to take what they developed. That's corrupt. That's broken. That's why I favor a drastic gutting of the FDA. It's something that even, my time in industry, here's what they would say. I had views that were critical of the FDA, but I had to keep them to myself because the thing they told me, and I was running a company, right? My job was not being a public figure or a spokesman. It was to be the CEO of a successful company that I was leading, thousands of people, jobs created behind actually the medicines we're developing. I can't just leave them hanging out to dry because I say something bad about the FDA. There's an old industry adage in pharma, quiet. Everybody in pharma knows this adage to be true. They say FDA never forgets. So if you say something about the FDA, they will make it hell for you. You will have hell to pay for it. And it was funny, actually, even when I went to law school, this is after years of being a biotech investor, it was like an eye-opening experience for me to say that, wait, the FDA is actually bound by law. That was a revelation to me. If somebody's working in the industry, people in the pharma industry aren't taught to think that way either. Whoa, the FDA is thought to be God. But the fact that they're bound by law, that's like a novel notion for most people who work in the interstices of this industry.
It's 100% corrupt, and it's got to go. There's literally nothing like it, and these people are killing you with the stuff they're allowing in your food, just your food alone. They're killing you. They're killing your children. There's cancer rates are through the roof. But the Democrats act surprised. Here's RFK Jr. saying that, I'm basically going to get rid of everybody.
You say clearing out the corruption in your terms. Would that mean clearing out the top level federal service workers that are currently at the FDA and the CDC?
In some categories, I would say.
What does that look like? Yeah.
In some categories of workers, there are entire departments, like the nutrition departments at FDA, that have to go. That are not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids. Why do we have Fruit Loops in this country that have 18 or 19 ingredients, and you go to Canada and it's got 2 or 3?
Would you eliminate any of the agencies?
To eliminate the agencies, as long as it requires congressional approval, I wouldn't be doing that. And I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I've sued all those agencies. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do. And once they're not corrupt, once Americans are getting good science and are allowed to make their own choices, they're going to get a lot healthier.
You say clearing out
the... This is coming from a Democrat. He's a Democrat. Lifelong Democrat. And this is just the beginning. You got to remember, we're not even a year into this presidency or these appointments. We're at the very beginning, and it's starting. And this is exactly what I voted for.
And Rich, some big news out of the CDC tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Health and Human Services is announcing that the director of the CDC is out. This is just a few weeks after she was confirmed. Susan Menarez is leaving. Also, this is on top of Reuters now reporting that several others at the CDC have issued their resignation letters. The reasoning is unclear, though. The New York Times is reporting it was over differences with Secretary Kennedy on vaccine policy. Federal regulators have just approved and limited COVID vaccines for Americans. That has also put them at odds with some doctors groups who have issued their own recommendation on who should get COVID shots. Brett?
Rich Edson live on the North Lawn. Rich, thanks. And Rich, some big news out of the CDC.
Bye. I hope it's a situation like Ronald Reagan had in the 80s where the air traffic controllers all went on strike. And then he fired all of them because they wouldn't go back to work. I thought that was great. But there is a report that came out about the vaccine. Okay? Do your own research. Disclaimer for the Ryan Samuel Show.
6 months of age, just over a year on, the Bombshell Report, which has just been published by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OEC, and subsequently suppressed by the mainstream media, revealed that nearly 500,000 children and young adults have now died since the injections were approved for use on most children. And here is the figure that the mainstream media are working overtime to hide from you. Over 118,000 of those deaths are suspected to be linked to the COVID vaccine side effects. Despite the staggering death toll revealed in the report, it's been met with deafening silence from the mainstream media. We shouldn't be surprised. The report exposes the globalist elite and their propagandists in the mainstream media as the frauds and liars that they are. All through 2021, Democrat President Joe Biden's administration and then Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci continued to insist that the COVID jabs were safe and effective for all ages. According to Fauci, vaccines were necessary for protecting kids from the virus, despite children only showing mild symptoms, if any at all. We have compiled a rogues gallery of crooks who lie to our faces about the vaccines. All of these people have the blood of hundreds of thousands of American children on their hands.
Not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people and allowing society to get back to normal.
We can kind of almost see the end. We're vaccinating so very fast. Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
Getting vaccinated and getting a booster shot when eligible can save your life and protect you and your family and friends from getting seriously ill and spreading infection.
What do you think the probability is? 80%?
Personally, I think it's 100%. I think that there's a reduction in transmission.
Right. COVID, if you have these vaccinations. We have all the vaccines we need. We just need our people to take it. A, for their own protection, for the protection of their family, but also to break the chain of transmission. You want to be a dead end to the virus. So when the virus gets to you, you stop it. You don't allow it to use you as the stepping stone to the next person.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
Oh.
A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else.
Mad Cow.
It cannot use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people.
But it did.
That means
but you were
the
wrong.
vaccines will get us to the end of this.
Oh.
But when we look at the emergency use authorization, which is right on the screen, if you look what it says under transmission, this is what was known the moment they were making those statements. Can I have the next slide, please? What was known was that the data are not there, limited to assess the effects of the vaccine against transmission of SARS-CoV-2. They had no idea. They had no idea if it would stop the infection, yet they were making those statements on the news.
Plus, the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market.
Maybe it's because they had immunity from everything that they were like, screw it. We're not going to be held to liability. Any liability, lie. Sell more vaccines, scare them way more, and let's get everybody forced to have one, and we'll be trillionaires.
If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunization before it's entered the market? No.
Shameful. Turns out they were all telling barefaced lies to the public. But it gets even worse. Despite the mountain of evidence proving the globalists were lying to us about the COVID pandemic and their experimental jabs, some people continue to believe the lies.
I'm just glad the system worked. And that we were able to get Donald Trump back in office. I'm glad that the system worked, that we were able to stop this madness, and that we were finally Republicans for 100 years, man, have been talking about, reduce the size of the government, reduce the size of the government, reduce the size of the government. And in almost every instance, increased the size of the government the second they got power. This is the first time in history I have ever seen the government reduce its size and power. We saw the Department of Education gone, major personnel layoffs at the CDC and walkouts. That's great. That's great. Keep it coming. The federal government is too big. The federal government is too dangerous. There's one thing that will kill more people than cancer or anything else on earth, and that is government. And government too big and out of control will always be corrupted. That's why our founding fathers had all of these checks and balances in places to ensure that there was always a way to fix the problem. That's why we've lasted so long. Our 250-year anniversary as the United States of America is coming next July. It'll be the biggest American celebration of my lifetime. 250 years of a country that has lasted, and a country that is still free for the most part. We need to be more free. But hopefully the momentum will keep going. Hopefully the Republicans can win the midterms and shut this entire show down. Hopefully the redistricting will go through and we can completely keep these Democrats out of office for eternity, because they have systematically destroyed our government. They have destroyed our school system. That's the only thing the left does is destroy. The left never makes anything. The left never builds anything. It only destroys. And that was true back with Stalin and, all through history. And now the left has finally done the ultimate and has destroyed itself. It's destroyed the Democratic Party. A survey came out that we just talked about on the show last week. Only 8% of registered Democrats agree with the Democratic Party or believe it's going in the right direction. 8%. That means if you took only 100 Democrats, 8 of them would say, yeah, I like the Democratic Party. I'm happy to see what they're doing. That's substantial. And how they're going to rebuild that, I have no idea. I don't think they can. I hope they can't. But what's going to happen when they can't, and if the Republicans stay in power? Well, the Republicans are corrupt. So here's the thing. You got to remember. This system is corrupt. Power corrupts people, even pure people, good, wholesome people. Power corrupts them, which is why the checks and balances must stay in place. And why giving people too much power is bad. It's never good. The federal government should be just strong enough to protect us from outside threats. It's the union of states for a centralized self-defense. A state, anywhere else in the world, is a country. The state of France, the state of Kenya, the state of Ireland, or, Great Britain. These are countries. They're states. That's why we're the United States, the United Countries. We just all have an alliance. And that alliance is the Constitution, which used to be the Confederate States. But the thing that the states created for a national self-defense that they used to be in charge of is now in charge of them. And decreasing the CDC and the FDA, get rid of the Board of Education, these are all minimal things, tiny things, a drop in the bucket of what needs to be done. Anybody, alphabet soup, alphabet agency, get rid of them. Get rid of all of them. Gavin Newsom has been going around telling everybody how, California's got the world's 4th largest economy in the world. Great. Then why do you need the federal government? If one of our states is the 4th largest economy in the world, why do we need the federal government? But that's going to be our show for this evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. You can watch me right where you're watching me now. If you ever missed the show, download it on the podcast or on Apple, Spotify. Watch it anywhere you can. Listen to it on your way to work and on your way home. Thank you so much for being valued supporters and listeners. I love you all. May God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow night.
Thanks for tuning in to The Ryan Samuels Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.